morning, I'm Trisha Bear from the Culinary Command Post, and today I'm going to show you how to make a chocolate cake, a moist chocolate cake with ganache icing, which is basically heavy cream and chocolate mixed together with a couple other ingredients. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to combine our dry ingredients. We're using a whisk attachment today, but if you had a paddle attachment, that would be better because then you're not over mixing it. Okay, so we're going to add in our dry ingredients, which is going to be your sugar. It's going to be your sugar, cocoa, baking soda, baking powder. So we've got 2 cups of sugar, 3/4 cup of chocolate cocoa, or cocoa chocolate I should say. Then we've got 1 3/4 cup of flour. And we're gonna mix it on low so it doesn't throw your powder ingredients everywhere. All right, and then we're gonna also add the baking powder, which is 1 teaspoon. Kind of mix it around a little bit. And then 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, which is a little bit bigger pieces than a regular salt is. And then your baking soda, which was 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Make sure it's coming out okay. Make sure you get it all out of the bottom because baking soda and baking powder is what helps it rise properly and get the correct texture. Alright, so we're going to mix that up just for a couple minutes just to get it mixed. Now we're going to add, instead of coffee, you can add coffee to it. I don't like coffee. So what I was going to add is my milk chocolate cocoa pod instead, and it's about 2 tablespoons. So we're going to add that to the dry ingredients. And then I'm also going to add chocolate instant pudding. Now this right here is a family size pack, so I'm just going to add half of it, which would be 1 small pack of your chocolate instant pudding to it. And it's supposedly what gives it moisture also. So we're just going to add half this pack to the dry ingredients. About half of it. Alright, and so that's all of our dry ingredients. So we're going to go ahead and mix that for a couple minutes on low because you don't want to throw your powder everywhere. Alright. Okay, you want to gently mix it. You don't want to over mix the cake because if you do, it's going to be too dense, and you're not gonna like that. So, okay, we're going to take this off, and we're going to get your wet ingredients mixed in, and then we're going to add the two together. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to take this off, and we're going to use the same mixer for right now, but we're going to put it in a plate and then add it back once we've mixed up your wet ingredients. Just like that. Okay. There's a hole on this one. Just like that. Okay, so now we're going to add in our wet ingredients. And you don't want to overmix it, so we're going to put in our buttermilk. And buttermilk is another thing that helps cakes stay moist. And then also pineapple juice is another thing you can use. So we're going to use 1 cup of buttermilk. And then we're going to add in our vegetable oil and our 2 eggs. So it's 1/2 cup of vegetable oil. Then we're going to add in 2 eggs and vanilla. And we've got vanilla, it's 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And 2 eggs. That's 1. 2. Okay, so we're going to mix in our eggs, and we're not going to over mix it. Let's do it on low. Okay, and now we're going to add our dry ingredients back into the wet ingredients. And I'm just going to mix them just a little bit with the whisk just to make sure we got all the cocoa and flour mixed in. And you could put this in a bowl instead if you wanted to. Alright, so now we're going to put in our cocoa powder. And I'm going to lift that up so I can make sure I get it all in there. Like that. Use this. Put it in with the wet ingredients. Alright, mix that up gently. Not too much, just enough to get it combined. Okay, and you want to be sure to scrape down the sides of it, of the pan, because most mixers won't get the side unless you scrape them down. Alright, we're going to mix it another minute, and then we're going to heat up our milk, because we're going to use milk, 1 cup of milk instead of the coffee. And so we used 1 cup of milk, and then I added 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder instead of the coffee. But you can add the coffee if you like coffee. Alright, I just put the milk in the microwave just for a minute to get it hot. And we're going to mix that in as well. And I'm using 2 8-inch form pans, which I like these because it's easier to get the cake out of the pan, because the latch comes off once the cake is cooled, and then you can just take the cake off without having to try to dig it out of a regular pan. So those are 8-inch pans we're using for this recipe. And I've got the oven set at 350, and we're going to cook the cake about 35 to 40 minutes. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so that was about a minute to heat it up in the microwave. So now we're going to add our 1 cup of hot milk instead of the coffee. Alright, so that's it. We've mixed our dry ingredients up together, mixed our wet ingredients. Now we've mixed them together. In addition to that, we put in our 1 cup of hot milk. Okay, so now I have on the springform pans, I've got circle liners in them, and I'm just going to lightly spray the bottom with this baker spray. I like this one because it has flour in it. So lightly spray it. Put them on that. And we're just going to bake it from 35 to 40 minutes until a toothpick in the center comes out clean, or just with a few moist crumbs, and that's how you're going to tell if it's done or not. So I put some under the paper, but I'm also going to put a little bit on top so we can make sure we can get it out easy. We're going to pour half in one 8-inch pan and half in the other. And I've already got the oven preheated at 350. And on the spring foam pan, make sure you get the bottom end level so it doesn't seep out. And then you could snap it together to get it. So we're going to put half in here and half in there. I'm going to kind of mix it the bottom with my spatula, make sure we all got it all mixed in there. Now what we're going to do on our ganache icing, it's going to go on top and the sides of the cake, but I'm also going to poke holes in it, and we're going to put the ganache chocolate icing in the middle, in the holes on the cake, to make it more like a chocolate molten cake. Alright, so half in this one and half in the other one. Now I brought some orange marmalade that we're actually going to put as one of the center layer filling. We're going to put that in the center, and what orange marmalade is basically oranges and mandarin oranges and mangoes mixed together. So we're going to try that. Okay, let's make sure we got the same amount in both pans, because when they're done and they cool, we're going to put them together and use our orange marmalade as their filling, and then put ganache on the top with pecans. And I think that's about even. Alright, they're ready to go in the oven. Since this isn't my oven, we're going to start out at 35 minutes, and then we'll see if we need to go to 40 minutes or not. So now we've got our chocolate cake in the oven at 350 degrees. And now we're going to make our ganache icing, which basically is chocolate, which we're using Hershey's milk chocolate today. We're using 3 of the giant bars. And then we're using 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 2 tablespoons of softened butter, and then we're using our heavy cream. And all we're going to do is put the chocolate in here and let it melt. Let the I did warm up the heavy cream in the microwave for about 2 minutes. And we're going to pour the heavy cream on top of the chocolate. And you could use less than this, but I'm going to poke holes in the cake once it's cooled and put chocolate inside of it in the holes. So you can use less chocolate if you're not going to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to pour the hot, heavy cream on top of the chocolate. Okay, so now we've got our hot, heavy cream on our chocolate. Now we're going to just mix it up in the mixer. Okay, and then now I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of softened butter. Make sure it's softened at room temperature. Not melted butter, but softened. And then we're going to put in our 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And the butter gives it a glossy finish. Okay, and I'm going to wait until the cake gets cooled to add the pecans on top of the frosting, because remember, I'm going to poke holes in it with a wooden spoon. And you don't want to try to put the pecans in those holes. That ain't going to work too good. So wait until your cake gets out of the oven. We like about another 12 minutes. And then we can poke holes in it and pour our ganache inside of it, and then put it on top, and then put the pecans. Once you get the ganache in the holes, then you can add pecans to the ganache and put it on if you want. Alright, and that's how you make ganache chocolate icing. It just is going to pour right on top and in the holes once we get the cake done. And we get the holes poked. And you can use the end of a wooden spoon if it's a smaller spoon. This is kind of too big of a hole, so we're going to use a smaller one. Okay, so we just had our chocolate cake in the oven for about 35 minutes, but we're doing 2 round 8-inch pans. so it doesn't take as long. So your oven may take 40 minutes, but if you're doing 2 round ones, it may just take 35. So here's our cake, and we're gonna let it cool a few minutes, and we're gonna poke holes in it, and then put the ganache inside of the cake, and then put the icing on top once it cools completely. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and poke holes in the cake with a wooden end of a wooden spoon that's got the small teeth part. I'm gonna poke holes in it because I'm gonna put that ganache chocolate in those holes to make it kind of like a chocolate molten cake. So basically I'm just pouring the chocolate so it seeps into those holes I just made. That's why I made extra icing to go in those holes. Alright, so I'm going to spread it out, and we've got to make sure we leave some for when we get done to put it on top and the sides. So I'm just kind of spreading it into the hole. So I'm just basically leveling it off the best I can. And we're going to put the marmalade, orange marmalade jelly in the middle, so that's going to help them stay together. And then, so you level it the best you can. I'm not the best cutter, but I'm going to level a little bit more. And I put the chocolate in the holes, the ganache, because I wanted to have a chocolate molten cake taste. Okay, so now we're going to put on our orange marmalade on our cakes. And they use simple syrup in school to make their cakes moist. I don't know, I just think there's an easier way to get cakes moist without putting simple syrup on them. So on this one, we used buttermilk. And we tried not to over mix it. So that 2 things that we did to try to help not make it to where it's a denser cake and not a chocolate molten cake. And I'm gonna remove it. Let me get my big scooper thing. I'm gonna remove it. This is what this comes in handy for if you ever get a chance to get one of these. Then you can scoop it off of that cake pan, because you don't want that in the middle of your cake, of course. So I'm gently going to the bottom of it and lifting it up. See how easy that was? I'm just going to try to get it on there the best I can. See how it went right on? Just like that. Alright, so now just make sure it's centered on the other one. Scoot it around a little if it ain't. And then we're going to pour our ganache on top of that. And put it in the center and just let it run off of it. Help spread it out if you want. And when we put that butter in, when we did the ganache, see how it's got a glossy look? That's how you get that glossy look. It's that butter that we put in. Okay, so that's the top of the cake. And now I'm going to go around the sides, and I've never really used this type of brush, but I'm going to see if it'll work. So we're going to go around the sides and put as much of this as we can to kind of see if those 2 pieces will go together. Go to OSUIT, they'll have you make chocolate showcase or showpieces. And I made an eagle. I thought it was an American eagle, but Chef Ware said it was a buzzard because I didn't have enough feathers on it. I said, you didn't give me no chocolate. I need more chocolate if you want feathers. But he thought I was making a buzzard, and I was really making an American eagle, but it didn't look like it. It didn't turn out. It tasted good, but it did not look like an eagle.